What's up, y'all? How it be, what it do? Welcome to episode 13. Lucky number 13, Dylan. We are at 13, so hopefully this will be a good one. That number seems to not, I don't know, I'm not that superstitious. Anyway, we got Dylan on here. My name is Pastor Andrew. For those of you that don't know who I am, student pastor here at Aaron Lake Baptist Church. We're glad you guys are tuning in. What we're going to do today is we're going to just have a conversation with Dylan, real short. Dylan preached. He brought the message to us on Sunday night, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And I saved this until this point, but I told Dylan that was not cool for him to make me cry right before he preached that message. He said some real kind words. So Dylan, I just want to say thank you for being willing and just being willing to be poured into. It's been a joy to see God grow through you. And it's a joy for any of us in ministry to just see students really take ownership of the giftedness that God's given them. And you've done that tremendously, and so we're proud of you. I think God gets more of the credit than we could ever try to give credit to ourselves. But we're proud of you, and David both. I know David did it a couple weeks ago, and David brought a great message, and he was on our last podcast. Go check that out. But we're going to talk about Dylan this time. So Dylan really talked about in this last message just the rhythms of life, busyness of life. And you used a particular text out of Mark chapter 1 that was very, very interesting, that really related to the kind of the day in the life of Jesus is how I see it. So what led you, Dylan, to really talk about that? Like what's that was a great text to preach on. I think it was timely with everything going on, but what really led you to say, hey, this is something that's important. I think we need to talk about it.
Well, it really just came to me in a just normal day of reading the Word. I try to be consistent as much as I can, but sometimes my focus can go other ways. But it was just a normal day of me reading the Word, and I just noticed that Jesus spent time with his Father, and he was always busy, but he still made time to spend time with his Father. And it's definitely something that I strive to do every day. And when I noticed that, it was like, and you asked me to preach, and I was like, I want to preach on this. I think it's very important, especially in the year of 2020.
Yeah, 2020, man. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and somebody said that I don't know if I've been looking more forward to seeing the ball drop New Year's coming up, because like this year has just been a mess. So, I mean, God obviously is still at work, and he's ruling and all that kind of stuff, but it's been tough. And I think really when you think about it, and this is what I loved about your message, you kind of tied that in because you talked about the busyness of life and the idea of developing routines and habits. And I think when COVID hit, what any of us had of what you would consider as a routine, like just kind of went out the window. I mean, with students in particular, school was all put on hold. That was really awkward. We're still trying to figure out how to do school and all that kind of stuff, particularly in the middle school and high school groups. And, shout out to the teachers that are out there doing the best they can with all this stuff going on. But man, the church shut down. Like, I mean, we didn't really shut down. We went online, and there was just so many things that were just different. And I think that plays into our schedules and our routine. So how about with you, Dylan? What about with when you think about your routine, your quiet time and all that kind of stuff, like, how did you, when all that stuff was going on, like how did it fare for you during that time? Like as far as the daily habit of being in the Word and all that kind of stuff, was it tough, easy? I don't know.
So when we started the year of 2020, I was doing great. I was, praying, spending time with God a lot. I was making an appointment with God every day. But when COVID first started coming, I got a little distracted a little bit. I think all of us did a little bit. But as time was going through and as the shutdown, everything, I kept it going with back getting in the Word and everything and being consistent and everything, which is important. And to this day, I'm still doing pretty good with that. I'm still doing good with being consistent and everything. And it's really important that, that we spend time with God, whether it's in prayer, worship, or reading the Word, or all three. And even taking that, what we learned in 2020 to 2021 with spending time with God, is definitely important.
So let's talk about that for a second. What have you found that works well for you, Dylan, as far as to be able to get in the Word? Because the passage really leading up to the main text where we saw in Mark, I think it was like Mark 26 or so, chapter 1, verse 26, it starts getting into Jesus and how he was healing people. He was doing all these different things, performing miracles. and then he gets up really early in the morning and he goes and spends time with the Father. So what does that look like for you? What does your typical time alone with God look like whenever you draw near to him?
So it's interesting. I try my best to start it with my day, but I'm not the best morning person. Sometimes I
We had
wake
to
up.
get you up early to do this. So
That's true. That's true. But normally I'll wake up around just like 10 o'clock or even earlier. So for some that's late, for some maybe that's early, but still I'm not the greatest morning person. Like I don't fully adjust until like noon. I can't fully adjust. So I try to do it in the morning to start it to start my day. But if not, I do it at night before I go to bed to end my day with God, or sometimes even both. But it's really all about finding that routine and just finding that time that you can really just surrender yourself to him, and whichever time works best for you.
yeah, I think that's important because I remember me growing up and just hearing, because I mean, in the Bible, I think there is some importance to doing it first thing in the morning. I think that sets the tone for our day. I think it helps us to get reflecting on things. Like I know, for example, for me, today, the day we're recording this is election day, right? So there's a lot of things going on here, a lot of distractions that can be pulling for our attention. Well, sometimes I wake up and the first thing I do is I'll go check Twitter, or I'll check Instagram, or I'll check Facebook, or I'll go and look at the news. Like, what did I miss overnight? Like, what's going on around the world? And sometimes I'll allow myself to get pulled into that, and then I'll spend like 30 minutes like laying in bed because I get up early. Unlike Dylan, I go to bed early and get up early. He goes to bed late, gets up late, but that's okay. That's how it works out. But my thing is like I'll find myself being consumed with that, and then I'll rush through my quiet time because now I got to get up, I got to get going because I've got all my schedule and things going on during the day. But I definitely, I don't know about you, Dylan, but for me, I definitely see a difference when I don't personally, like when I don't spend time in the Word first thing. I feel like I'm kind of, there's something missing, like I'm not ready for the day. And I think it's vital. But I think you brought up a good point. You said that you're not necessarily a morning person, so sometimes you'll do it at night. And I think that's key because growing up, I was always taught do it first thing in the morning because that's just how Jesus did it. So we got to do that. Well, I agree 100%. I think that's good. I mean, I do it that way, but I'm a morning person. So at night, I can't function after like 8 o'clock. I'm done. But if you function better at night, do it at night. Just look for a time to be intentional in that time. And I think that I think that's really the key thing, and that's what you echoed, I think, so well in the message.
Yeah, definitely. It's really just finding that timing that we can really just ignore the world for a little bit, ignore the distractions and everything that we do in the world, and just surrender yourself to the kingdom and just sit there, whether it's in prayer, worship, reading the word, or all three, just really just sitting there and being with our Father in heaven. And really just connecting with him, because that's what Jesus did, and he connected with his Father, and it helped him.
Yeah, and I think too, you could make the argument, I think, because Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is God. I mean, we're not gonna get into the Trinity right now, but but Jesus and God, they're tight. You know what I'm saying? So I think you could make the argument to say, man, well, Jesus didn't need to spend time with the Father. I mean, he is. I mean, that's who he is. He is God. But yet he was intentional about it. And I think the one thing that we see in that intentionality behind Jesus, because I can't remember, I counted up one day how many instances there are of when Jesus draws away to pray. And there is a lot of emphasis on that it's particularly in the Gospel of Luke. And so I would encourage y'all, if y'all wanted to look, it's like, go in there and count how many times you see where the Bible says that Jesus pulls away to pray, or he goes away from the crowd, or he spends a lot of time with the Father. And I think what he was doing in that moment was showing us that we need to depend on God. We can't go through this life without him. And so we need to be connected to him. It's kind of like the old illustration with like your cell phone. Like your phone can, I just turned the flashlight on. Your phone can only be, your phone can only go for so long on a battery. Like I'm looking at mine right now, like it's already down 80-some%. At some point I got to plug it back in. I got to recharge back over. Well, I think the same is true for our life. is that we need to connect with God. We need to connect with him. So Dylan, let me turn it back over to you. Give us some practical tips. If a student is saying, man, I'm busy, what do I need to do? What are some practical tips to help get them to get started in spending time with God? Or what would you tell somebody comes up to you and says, hey, Dylan, I don't know what to do. How do I develop these habits in my life? What would you tell them?
So I would say two things. I think you have to ask yourself a question like, why do you want to do it? Like because when you look at it as a need in your life, then you really want to do it. And I think because a need means like it's urgent and that you really want to do it. And when you do it, whichever time you do it for the day, when you have a need, you're really saying that you want to do it. Secondly, I think just set out time and plan time with God, and then, in other words, set out an appointment with God, because when we have earthly appointments, we always make them. But even if we don't make them, we always we schedule it for another day. And the thing about appointments is when our appointment is the priority of the day. It's already planned ahead of time. So if we can plan that time with God ahead of time, then we will make it. And you never know what he can do in that moment. And it's definitely key that throughout our day that we seek him sometime.
Yeah. I think that's good. I think making the appointment is good. I wish I could pull up my schedule. I have a lot going on my schedule throughout the week. Some things I move around. I've got time blocked off to where, I'm going to be prepping for sermons. Shout out, we're starting Revelation this week. So I'm spending a lot of time, designated time to say from 10 o'clock to 3, I'm working on sermon prepping. And I have that built in each day, but I also have meetings that function around that. As soon as I get done with this recording, I got to run downstairs and go into a meeting. But I know during those times, that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. So I like what you said there. Schedule that time out. I told a student on Sunday night, she came up and she asked me, she said, she's like, I've heard a message like this a couple times now. And what does that mean? I said, well, it might mean that God's trying to get your attention to say, spend time with him. So I turned it back on her and I said, how's your quiet time going? Are you spending time with him? And she was just kind of like, not so. I'm like, there's your answer. So I told her the same thing. I said, try to schedule out some time and try to spend time with God. And so I think that's just vital. It's important.
Yeah. And, in verse 35 that I preached out of, it said the word isolated, and that word stuck out to me because isolation means alone, and it's important that when we spend time with God, it's alone. And I'm not saying that spending time in fellowship isn't bad anything at all. It's definitely important to our life, but sometimes I think it's important that we spend alone time with God too, and to connect with him alone a little bit.
Yeah, and I think you hear that too. People say go to your prayer closet, or whatever. The importance of just you and God, no distractions. And I would even say, I would challenge if you, and I know some people, they use their phone for YouVersion or Bible apps to help with their devotions and stuff. That's great. But try to refrain from the notifications. Turn the notifications off. Try to have an interrupted time. And I would even say, if this is a struggle for you, just try 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Just commit to 5 minutes. And then maybe next week, go 5 more minutes. And then the next week, go 5 more. And then, because you realize over time, once you develop the habit or the rhythm of getting along with God, and it's just like exercising. Once you do it for a certain amount of time, then it's just going to be natural that you're like, okay, let me get up and go do that. Well, it's the same thing with our time with God. Now, I do want to put a short little, extra little something on it. There are going to be times where you feel like, sometimes you'll have better days than others when it comes to being in the Word. And so I think in those moments, don't give up if you're having those days or if you go through a season of that. And what I mean by that is you may read the Word, you may read a devotion, and you're just like, God, I have no, I feel like my prayers are only going as high as the ceiling above me. I don't feel any connection whatsoever. I think we go through seasons like that. And I don't think if you're going through a season like that, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not saved or something. Now, there may be some sin in your life or something that's hindering your relationship with God. So I would ask God, say, hey, God, I'm feeling disconnected. Even though I'm connected, I feel disconnected. Reveal to me. Ask him. Say, God, help me to see what this is so that way I can draw near to you. And I think Pastor Jeff even preached on this. He said we got to be careful with our feelings. He said our feelings are fickle, is what he said in the sermon. So that means that we can't really trust our feelings. But I think there are some seasons that we go through where just like, man, I'm not getting anything out of this, or so just be encouraged to just continue going through. Don't go to God and ask him for those things. Don't feel like you can't ask God. Say, God, I said it yesterday. I was like, God, I am struggling. I feel like I'm not getting anything out there. I feel like the connection is not coming both ways. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. Help me to see some areas in my life that might be hindering me from being able to connect with you. And he revealed it to me yesterday. Like, I'm not even kidding. It was a weird thing. That doesn't happen all the time. But there was some things, and I read it even today. And I was reading Titus in my reading plan, Titus chapter 1. And it talked about how, we as elders or pastors of a church are to be, pure and holy and all these kind of things, and not to be, basically don't have an attitude. And there was a bunch of things in there. And I'm just like, oh, there's a few things here I know I'm struggling with. So I prayed those things back over. And so I think that just understand it, just encourage to push through. Don't get so focused on, if you feel like you're not getting anything out of it. I mean, God's still there. He's meeting you there, but there may just be something that's hindering that. So don't let that keep you from getting into the word or spending time with it.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely feel like that sometimes when I read the word. And I think sometimes I can think that if the word doesn't speak to me in a powerful way, like this scripture does, I think that the moment wasn't what I expected, or it wasn't useful. And it's definitely important to bring those good moments in the word to the next day and to the next moments in which you may think that the word doesn't speak to you in such a way, or even when you think that after you just got done praying that your prayer wasn't, great, or you didn't say the right thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. Every prayer, you get better over time. Right. And especially when you do it in front of people. I know that for sure. But yeah, so I think it's important you take those moments to other days, and you will get better over time.
Awesome. Hey guys, we appreciate you guys staying plugged in. Be on the lookout for we're starting Revelation next week. So that's this coming up week of when we're recording this. So that's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting. So we're looking forward to that. And man, we love you guys continuing to stay plugged in. And so we're praying for you. We love you, and we will see y'all next time.